How the US stole Soviet radar technology. A montage of Cold War-era imagery. Spy planes, radar dishes, and intelligence operatives moving in shadows. Hello my friends. Welcome to Secret Agents Exposed. Today we dive into a story so wild, so shocking, so interesting. You won't believe it's true. Let's start. During the Cold War, intelligence wasn't just gathered from people. IT was stolen from machines. While nuclear weapons held the spotlight, there was another invisible war raging. One that played out in radio waves across enemy airspace and behind sealed military bunkers. The United States and the Soviet Union were racing to dominate the skies, and radar technology was the key to detecting, defending, and destroying. But when the Soviets developed a new generation of powerful radar systems, the CIA knew they had to act fast. This is the true story of how the United States stole Soviet radar secrets piece by piece using spies, submarines, and satellites, and changed the course of modern warfare. The Cold War radar race. By the 1950s, radar wasn't just used to guide aircraft. IT was the backbone of national defense. Soviet radar stations could detect American bombers long before they reached their targets. To counter this, the US needed to know exactly what frequencies, power outputs, and capabilities these radars had. In simple terms, if the enemy sees you before you strike, you lose. But Soviet radar systems were classified at the highest levels. They were buried in bunkers, protected by military zones, and carefully concealed from the West. That didn't stop the CIA. The spy in the embassy. One of the boldest early operations took place not on a battlefield, but in an embassy. In the late 1950s, a Soviet engineer working on radar systems, Adolf Tolkachev, began secretly passing intelligence to the CIA. Over several years, he smuggled out detailed manuals, blueprints, and technical specs for advanced Soviet radar systems used in MiG-25 and MiG-29 fighter jets. Tolkachev was nicknamed the billion-dollar spy, WHY, because the data he provided saved the US billions in weapons development and gave American engineers the exact information they needed to develop counter-radar systems like stealth. But human spies were just one part of the operation. Project Tom Burrow and tech espionage. The US also relied on a daring method of intelligence gathering, electronic espionage. One classified effort was known as Project Tom Burrow. In the 1970s, the National Security Agency (NSA), working with the CIA and US Air Force, intercepted Soviet radar signals using electronic surveillance aircraft flying along the borders of the USSR. These spy planes, like the RC-135, were packed with high-tech receivers that could listen in on Soviet radar systems, analyzing the characteristics of each wave and pulse. But they weren't just passively listening. They were actively provoking radar installations to turn on their systems, giving US analysts the raw data needed to reverse engineer Soviet technology. And what they learned shocked them. Soviet radars were more advanced than previously believed, and a threat to American air dominance. The US needed hardware samples, not just signals. The Sabre radar HEIST. In 1980, the CIA launched a top-secret operation to physically acquire a Soviet radar system. This wasn't theory. This was THEFT, on foreign soil located in Baghdad, Iraq. A Soviet-made flat-face radar system had been installed as part of Iraqi air defense under extreme secrecy. The US recruited Iraqi intelligence insiders and managed to dismantle and smuggle the radar components out of the country, flying them piece by piece to Nevada, where they were reassembled and studied. The intelligence gained helped American engineers develop radar jamming systems and low-visibility aircraft, including enhancements to the F-117 Nighthawk stealth fighter. But even this was just the tip of the iceberg. Operation Ivy Bells and undersea cables. The US didn't just target radars on land. In a mission straight out of a spy thriller, the CIA and US Navy launched Operation Ivy Bells, a deep-sea espionage project aimed at tapping Soviet military communication cables on the ocean floor. Special submarines, including the USS Halibut, carried divers and technicians to secretly install wiretaps on Soviet lines, recording encrypted radar and missile test data directly from the source. The US could now monitor Soviet radar calibration, missile launches, and aircraft tracking in real time, without ever being detected, until one man betrayed it all. Ronald Pelton, a disgruntled NSA analyst, sold the secrets of Ivy Bells to the KGB and ended one of the most successful spying operations in Cold War history. The fall of the USSR and the radar gold rush. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, American intelligence agencies rushed into former Soviet republics offering cash for hardware documents and experts. Retired radar engineers desperate for income sold entire radar systems to U.S. and Israeli analysts. The U.S. acquired Soviet air defense simulators, radar arrays, and even mobile missile tracking stations. These systems were flown to Groom Lake, also known as Area 51, where engineers ran simulated dogfights to test U.S. stealth aircraft against real Soviet sensors. IT was the final piece of a decades-long puzzle. America now had complete knowledge of how Soviet radar worked and how to evade IT legacy and modern impact. Thanks to a mix of human spies, technical espionage, and brute force hardware theft, the United States achieved what once seemed impossible: mastery over radar invisibility. Today, as stealth jets like the F-22 Raptor and B-2 Spirit owe much of their effectiveness to the radar secrets stolen decades ago, and radar itself has evolved. Now the U.S. and its rivals develop phased array, quantum, and passive radar systems. Where the old rules, nitrogen monoxide, longer apply. The espionage continues, only now it's digital, faster, and harder to trace. The Cold War may be over, but the war for information never ends. Radar, once a silent tool of defense, became a battlefield of secrets, and in that invisible war the boldest victories weren't fought with bombs but with brains, deception, and betrayal. This was how the U.S. stole Soviet radar technology. Subscribe to * Golden Years Guide * for more unbelievable true stories from the world of spies, soldiers, and shadow wars. We'll see you in the next deep dive. See you in the next video with unique story.